Hi, I'm Paul Bowman, CEO of Wexer, the digital fitness specialist who deliver over 25 million fitness experiences per year for our partners worldwide. Welcome to the Wexer podcast, where I'll be speaking to industry experts to bring you insights and advice to support your business journeys. In today's episode, I'll be chatting with Nat Grosvenor, CEO of Bodyfit Fitness Centers. Bodyfit is a vibrant fitness community offering world-class facilities with an inclusive environment where members can access diverse services. How are you?
Good morning, Paul. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And at the top of the call, we realised this is your first podcast, so I'm excited to be this guy for you.
The special one, the chosen one.
So the question I always ask every single person that comes on the podcast, kind of, the background and the story, but more, did fitness find you or did you find fitness?
Yeah, interesting question. And coming at an interesting time. I've just celebrated quite the milestone of birthday. So I've been down the rabbit hole of reflection. And the answer, quite simply is that I found fitness, but quite an interesting journey I've been on. So I studied business. I came from a family of educators, and whilst I didn't appreciate the value of it at the time, it's really been the cornerstone of my journey to where I am today. So, the commitment to the learning and development has taken me on a plethora of different trajectories. But I started after my business degree in hospitality, and then I went into construction. I was married very young and a mum very young, and I grew a family-owned construction business and ran that successfully for 20 years. And whilst I was where life needed me to be, I was far from being fulfilled. And, I really had this innate sense to want to make a difference. So I decided to quickly do my fitness certs on the side and see if I could just change a couple of overweight females, lives down at the local football oval. And I did that, and accidentally, very quickly, I had quite a successful PT business, which then evolved. And then I had some fairly significant life events sort of all collide at the same time. And within 3 years' time, I had 2 heart attacks, a divorce, lost my dad, and then walked away from the family business. But what I did, walk away with was what mattered the most was my 2 boys. And then hence my mantra was born, which is crisis creates opportunity. And that has served me daily ever since that time. I just think that whether you're in business or whether you're in life, when you're in the depths or the valleys of death or wherever you might be, really great things can come from that because you're forced to think differently and do differently. So it took me on quite the journey. And I went to then growing some large boot camps to developing and running my own wellness retreats overseas. And then was approached by a startup, Live Life Get Active, which was an awesome opportunity. So corporate, community and government collective. And working in a startup, the learning opportunity is like no other. And I still apply that mentality to my business now. It keeps me hungry. So that was really great. And then from there, I thought the next step in the progression was to learn about big box part of the sector. So I joined Fitness First, like we all do in Australia. We cut our teeth there.
I knew the other parts. I didn't know the Fitness First part.
Yeah. Well, you Kiwis all do it with Les Mills. Us Aussies all do it with Fitness First. So that was great. It's been about me acquiring the right learnings from the right people at the right time, and served me so well. So then I got a tap on the shoulder after a few years with Fitness First by the founder of Bodyfit. I had a reputation for strong and consistent leadership. He, needed a complete reset and rework of his business that wasn't trading so well at the time. So he asked me to come in and turn around their big flagship, which was loss-making entity at the time. And I think that was really, obviously a test. If I could do that, there was more to come. So I went on a very quick sort of upward trajectory throughout the business to becoming the key decision maker and having the privilege to lead just before COVID. So what a time.
You have a lot of entrepreneurs and senior execs and people I think were looking to step up to be senior execs. That's a massive step up, like really, really, really quickly. How did you manage that? Like, talk to me about like what those first kind of 90 days in terms of managing people, your own headspace. Like, did you have principled in terms of the way you think? Like, was there particular principles that you had when you're during that kind of time, I guess?
I think, personally, I just knew that I was meant for something big, and I knew that I had to create that myself. It was never going to come to me. And I saw Bodyfit as an opportunity to break through so many ceilings so quickly, but it was going to take everything, and I was prepared to give it. So, the business needed a lot of work, and I had to take many, many backward steps before I even thought about us moving laterally. Do you know what I mean? So it was sort of around prioritization at that time, from trying to get just some basic fundamentals flowing, rebuild the people piece, make sure that we had some structure and some foundations and fundamentals, and then get down to performance once I had the right lineup. So it was just an hourly, daily. The story really is on resilience and grit, both for me and the business. It's, and nothing turns around quickly, is it? So, but COVID was a gift. It gave me time to develop and to grow, and to implement strategy, which I never would have had that time. So, whilst financially nearly destroyed a lot of us in our industry, it taught us so much and positioned us really well. So we certainly came out the other side a different business, and I came out an entirely different leader. So I'm grateful for it.
Nice. And then again, going back to that time with that huge step up and COVID, did you surround yourself with people? Like, did you have a bouncing board to be able to, because of course the grind when you're in a situation like that is tough, but like, what was your support network look like?
Yeah, it was difficult. I think, connectivity and interaction for everybody was challenged at times, wasn't it? And I think, I made some mistakes like all of us did, but predominantly my focus was on my people. So trying to keep them engaged, trying to keep them connected, and using it as an opportunity to upskill them and develop them was another way of, that level of engagement. So I kind of forgot about myself. It was so, heavily prioritized around the business and the people, because I really knew, for one, we had to come out the other side, but for two, there was no way knowing we were going to be the same business and we weren't going to be the same professionals. It was an opportunity not to be missed, So I probably sacrificed myself too much in that time, but I have been grateful to have some mentors along the way, and a lot of my learnings have come from outside of our industry and our sector as well, which I think is important for us to always focus on. So and of course, my boys and my family and my partner, I'm very lucky to have that stability in my life as well. So they're always around, which I'm blessed.
And then talk to us a little bit about Bodyfit for the people that don't know what Bodyfit is. Its mission, services.
Yeah, sure. So we're just about to have our 12th birthday this week. So wheels in motion for some exciting celebrations. We're still bootstrapping, God love us, after 12 years. So it's a white knuckle ride of mine. Not that I'd have it any other way. So we're family owned still to this day. We have 8 clubs across Sydney in a full service part of our sector. And we're in the business of curating and selling value, to be honest, Paul. Our unique value proposition is based on an all-inclusive model, which has got it in one philosophy. So it's really about value, affordability, flexibility, making sure that we can really bolster up the offering and the experience to provide an unrivaled and unmatched sort of value proposition. So we obviously, the expectation has been growth. We have grown 5 clubs over the last 5 years. We've opened 5 new ones, which has probably been on the back of some strong corporate and commercial relationships which we've established. But growth is a powerful temptress, isn't it? Especially in our industry. And when people think growth, they think volume and scale. I had to be very careful and very controlled to not go too big too soon. And we really just honestly weren't positioned to do it, sustainably or scale successfully. So the last few years have been really doubling down on that, and I'm very proud to say that we're poised and positioned perfectly for the next stage in our life cycle. So it's exciting. Yeah.
And then, one thing I've always envied about you is just how clear you are about how you streamline operations. And so maybe for listeners, I guess maybe what is the key strategies you do for streamlining your operations to deliver such a high quality member service that you do?
Thanks, Paul. That's a compliment coming from you. But, my team will tell you I'm always banging on about utilization, and the utilization of your resource pool is just absolutely critical. And for me, your two most important resources are your people and your time. So I have a people first philosophy, which I live by and lead by. And that's filtered down into a very collaborative and high performing culture of Bodyfit. So the investment into the people is above all else, to get right things right and have the right people in the right seats, and having the right people to deliver and execute on strategy daily. It's a daily thing. So and then utilization of resource in terms of time, and then of course tech, and we don't swim in very big buckets of capital, as I mentioned before. So it makes you become very creative. And somebody said to me once, "Nat, there's nothing more motivating than running out of money." And I'm like, you know what, you're absolutely right. So we are so innovative and progressive because of that. We have to be, So that's sort of been the greatest evolution in terms of, sophisticated and streamlined systems, is been utilization of that tech and, building out that ecosystem.
Does it change who you hire? Because one thing of when in terms of scaling businesses, coming from always trying to doing a bootstrap model, and then sometimes finding capital, you kind of hire different types of people, and sometimes people that are used to having so much capital in their workplace versus a bootstrap model, you've really got to challenge that at the recruitment stage to make sure that they are comfortable with that environment. Like, do you? Because every time I've been to a site, your staff are killing it. So they buy into you, or they buy into this bootstrapping idea. So what's the technique?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of them don't understand bootstrapping. They think that it all grows on the trees, of course. So it doesn't really anything that comes into conversation or development. But I guess I want them to have the hunger and the passion. I'm really, really committed to investing into them. And I feel I have a responsibility to set them up for a successful pathway, whether it be with Bodyfit or because of Bodyfit, but they've got to want to do the work themselves. So I look for that hunger and that drive first. And, skill is the easiest problem that you'll ever have, so I'm happy to always fill that gap, and continue to do so. So, and then of course we're purposefully led. So, I came into this industry purely out of wanting to make a difference, and I'm of course so commercially minded in the role that I'm in, but I honestly believe we can make a difference and make a dollar. So, our why, and our purpose in terms of making an impact on the well-being of our communities, that has to really matter to our people. And I believe that, our teams really have that value embedded into their daily drive. And I'm really proud of our people. It's, your business is only as good as what they are. And I do think we've got the best at Bodyfit. So, yeah, very, very happy to say so.
And do you think that the younger generation are more bought into purpose-led businesses? Like I just feel, even with my own team, the more time I spend with the younger staff, the more of the results I get. There's a direct correlation to that. And I think, they just seem to want to have more access to leadership and understand the journey and understand how, the joy. This is the joys of our podcast in terms of actually sharing the journey that's online that they can resort back to. Like, is there something in that, or are you seeing there's a difference there with the younger generation coming forward?
Oh, Paul, I think we're going to get into some very muddy waters with this ageist conversation now. I'm a little bit, but no, it's really challenging to meet all your employees where they're at. They all have incredibly diverse and different needs, as they should, and we've got to see them as individuals rather than a collective. And we've worked really hard on spending a lot of time finding out exactly where their values do lie, and not just inside our box but outside of our box, so that if Bodyfit can make an impact on their lives outside of what they do with us, then we're really doing it well. So I think it's about connecting those two things, and each generations have different motivators, different influences, different values, and different drivers. And back in the day, it was, if you're a salesperson, well, you're just hungry for comms and you're financially motivated and financially driven. But you have salespeople that are at the top of an acquisition leaderboard, and they're actually not driven financially. Do you know what I mean? So, and of course, they have different approach to their well-being. They've got a far better prioritization around so-called work-life balance and things that you and I probably never grasp. So I think that we've got a lot to learn from the younger generation, and as organizational leaders, traditionally it's always been around to hire for the maturity, and everybody comes with the nuances, and I think that you've just got to be open to what that can bring to your organization, and then what that can bring to the dynamics and the collaboration amongst your team.
Well said. Well said. I'll leave you alone on that one. Let's go. let's go to industry trends. Like you kind of mentioned in terms of your bootstrapping mentality, but what's your thinking in terms of bringing in innovation and making sure that it kind of helps you set yourself apart in your centres?
Well, you'll love this, Paul, because I think, honestly, it doesn't matter what sector or industry you're in. We're all in the tech industry. It's 2025. Let's go. Do you know what I mean? So I think,
I'll say a bit of myself. Someone.
I'm happy to be on your PR bandwagon anytime. However, it's really jolted us into to do business differently, and to really think about the opportunity that's available to us as business operators, but also to our consumers. And thanks to technology, our consumers are more informed and better educated around their health and wellness than they ever have been. I mean, thanks COVID, because it taught them that they need to be, and they now value their health and well-being differently. But, our consumers are now obsessed with biometrics and health analytics that we need to ensure they've got in front of them, and we need to provide solutions to be able to have an impact on that. So I think, that part of our business, is really, really at the forefront of what's going to drive future change for us daily. I think, obviously, the focus on a holistic, and more of a health approach, and us, steering away from fitness. I mean, I was talking wellness 10 years ago. That's because I'd been sick. And do you know what I mean? People don't value their well-being until they don't have it. And I think since COVID now, we're really seeing that come to fruition in a change in people's beliefs and value sets because of that. And it's just boom time for our industry. So there's never been a better time to be in our industry because of that, which is so exciting. But then we've got to make sure we've got offerings which are bolstered up and ready to provide. And, consumers' needs and demands and expectations are just changing so rapidly that, yesterday's wow that we delivered is tomorrow's so what, right? So we have to innovate and adapt and evolve, at a continuous rate and scale, which, making sure we've got the resource to do that, which is important. And then I really see the DEI, and the importance of us really bringing that to the table now, and making sure that we're rethinking and resetting the way that we do our business, and so that we are, as an industry, sincerely ensuring that we can cater for, the well-being and those opportunities for everyone in our community, no matter what their needs are. So I think that that's going to become more and more prevalent on the table for our industry, and so it should. So we're working towards a greater focus on that as a business, particularly in terms of accessibility. It's a big focus for us.
And all the research is showing it, right? When they make that choice of the physical gym, they're also expecting everything to be the same as what they could get if they were digitally. So the expectations are so much higher that we're actually needing to support or inspire our members daily on wherever they are, and that can't just be physically at all times. So kudos to you and the team. I guess with specifically on actual virtual fitness though, what, like, in terms of enhancing accessibility and engagement for your members both in and out of the gym, like what results have you seen? How have people reacted to it?
Well, for us, it just made us, gave us an opportunity when we added the Wexer Virtual to our offering. We could really stand on the shoulders of our positioning in the marketplace. We really needed to bolster up that value position. If we're in the business of selling and value, we've got to have the best value, and that means we needed a far greater diversity in our offering in terms of variety, and to have a digital on-demand solution is an expectation for the majority of our customers, if not all. We didn't have it. So it provided the opportunity for that. But then, of course, we were able to transition our traditional product and facility experience within the big box into a more holistic one, where we can now talk about, the fact that we can personalize a journey, with them throughout, with wellness and holistic products that we've never been able to offer for, and really push into demographics and different consumer needs that we couldn't previously cater for. And then, of course, the integration of that into our app means that when they're away from our big box, they're still connected to our big box. They're more likely to walk back into our big box, because at the end of the day, it's all about, their lifespan and their longevity with us as customers. And I think that by having that connectivity, with that always on, digital on-demand solution in their pocket, it really drives that relationship with us and that connectivity, which is so valuable.
I think it's amazing. I saw the stats of yourselves as well, is that the traditional user, what they traditionally do versus what they do online, actually can be just completely polar opposite. Like, hence what we're talking about is, they might be the hardest person working out at the gym, but actually they want stretch and flow and more relaxation when they actually hit home. And I think it's quite apparent with your guys' usage.
Yeah, absolutely. And it presents a number of opportunities when you look at, both your customer experience and your employee experience. And to me, they're both as important as one another. And so we're looking at ways now that we can pop the virtual experience as part of our tailored customer journeys, in terms of pivotal interactions, in terms of starting to personalize their journey through the offering. And we're automating that through our Salesforce journeys, but doing that obviously from an employee perspective as well, in terms of plugging them into personalized journeys through Salesforce. So that we're impacting their well-being and encouraging them to add purposeful and mindful practices into their workday, into their life outside of Bodyfit. So, that to me, if we can really drive down on that investment into the well-being of both the customers and the employees, job's done. I'm super happy, And
that's what we're seeing now. And I think, all the different apps, the YouTubes of the world and stuff, they're so good at serving up content. We're people want to kind of see, okay, I'm in here and this is the content that Bodyfit is telling me to do. That's what I will do. It's amazing when you serve up content how often it gets played. Like, we're talking about 80% now. So it's the traditional. I would say the ones that want to be inspired will actually go to a content partner and they'll choose a particular person that they want to follow. But that's 20%. The other 80%, you serve it up to them, they'll use it. It's going to be awesome to see how this plays out with all the Salesforce journeys, for sure.
I agree. And I think, for the consumer to have that opportunity independently to acquire that confidence level, which might again drive motivation to not just come into the big box, but to then perhaps go into a group in a structured, group fitness and exercise program, where they have opportunity to then, join, another part of the community. I think that it gives them that chance as well. But they just want choice. Whether they use it or whether they don't, they actually expect it, and we have to meet them where they're at. But our job is to drive the utilization now, because we're really only just, skimming the surface now. And I want to make sure that that product is in everybody's hands, as often as we possibly can. So we actually called it Feel Good, which I love, because when we surveyed our members as to why they come to Bodyfit, it was overwhelming, response of around 60% of our members come because we make them feel good. So, so when we partnered with you guys, I went, let's give it a brand of its own and let's call it Feel Good, because that's what we aim to do. And I believe we do it well. So.
No, you're doing very well. Nice. And then I guess, longer term thinking in terms of, just how are you going to meet the needs of the fitness member? Like, I guess maybe actually I'll phrase it better. Like, what are you worried about, the trends that are of the fitness member? And then maybe what are you excited about? I know you're always a half glass half full gal, but give me some worries as well.
Yeah, look, I see opportunity everywhere. You know that about me. But, so I see everything as being exciting and challenging. I think it's about the importance of us listening and learning. So, rather than going off on a tangent with innovation and exploration because we think that's what the customer needs or our employee needs, no, let's find out and let's stay close to them in terms of understanding what their needs and priorities are and making sure that we're meeting them and exceeding them rather than making assumptions. And then, of course, data drives your decisions. And, there's a lot of answers in the data if you're looking behind the data rather than in front of it. So, obviously, strategically, that's pretty critical as well. But I guess, we can always learn a lot from one another. And I love that about our industry in terms of the way that we do keep a close and careful eye on one another, but happy to share and happy to learn and happy to grow together. And, when you look at the penetration, in our country in Australia of those that do attend businesses like Bodyfit, there is so much food on the table, and all of us competitors can be all parked up beside each other and we all should be doing incredibly well. So, we haven't even touched the opportunity pool, I don't believe. So we can all do it differently. We all have to do it differently. And so we should. So I think as long as, we've proudly got around, 96% retention in our business, which tells us we're doing a lot of the right things right. But as long as we've got that commitment to the continuous and never-ending improvement, and as long as that direction is driven by your data or by your consumer and employee sentiment, they've got to be telling you what matters and what where their values lie to be able to drive your strategy from there.
And what is your feedback loop with the customer at the moment? Like, what advice would you give?
In terms of my advice to the customer, or
no, your advice to take actions from the customer feedback. I think there's a lot of not looking at the problems of what the customer's facing and trying to solve it. Sometimes we're just building it for the sake of building it, or our competition has it down the road. I've always felt like you've done it. You always go a little bit deeper in terms of what do they actually want, and then let's meet them where they are.
And that's an interesting question. I could probably go on forever about that, but it then comes down to, well, how do we serve them? And so how do we serve them? So have we got the balance right between, making sure that they have high quality, low touch interactions and doing that, are they getting that through our journeys, which are predominantly AI driven? And have we got the balance right with the humanization and the importance of that? And, when I look at the satisfaction levels of some of our customers, some of our happiest customers are those that never ever have an interaction with a staff member because they come outside of staffed hours, which is really interesting. So then you look at the experience that you're providing within the facility, and then, what are they telling us they want to see in the facility? Because, the big box has shrunk for obvious reasons. We're in the real estate industry, right? So how do I get that optimum experience within 600 square meters now instead of 2,500 square meters? So I've got a really profitable unit. So I think around that utilization, again, of space, making sure that every corner of that facility is designed to deliver upon their needs, and they're changing, right? So I think that's really important. And then, if you don't have advocacy, you don't have a business. So, how well you're tracking based on that. And, the advocacy and equity that we have in our business is incredibly strong, which tells us that we're on the right trajectory, but the challenge is always to stay there or to grow it, of course, and enhance it. So I just think, honestly, getting the balance right between, if you look at product or offering or your positioning in the market, it's all around getting the balance right, as much as I hate that word, between, the humanization, the digitization, and the personalization. That's really it in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, well said. And then I guess, looking crystal ball, 5 to 10 years, where do you see the industry and Bodyfit in that?
I think there'll be interesting times in our industry. I think it'll be driven, by some external factors such as economic conditions and obviously governance, particularly in Oz. And I think New Zealand, it's quite challenging for you guys too. It's getting tougher and tougher to do business. So I think that will drive a lot of change, and it'll force us to continue to try and create further efficiencies from a business perspective. And I think, it's going to be an interesting litmus test now in terms of it'll be a survival of the fittest in terms of evolution in our industry. And I think those with a traditional mindset and those that continue to do what they've always done will actually start to drop off. Those that are open in terms of reworking and evolving their business models, the way they do their business and the business that they have, it should not look like it looked 5 years ago. It should not look like it looked 5 days ago. So those that are committed to moving really quickly, however, with controlled vision as well, they're going to be the strength of our industry. And you see some really unique brands out there at the moment doing incredibly well, and they deserve to. But I think there's some risk in our industry as well of, some brands that have potentially gone too big too soon. And I do feel for them, in this environment, that it's not as easy as what people think in our industry. So yeah, that's right. So obviously the next stage of our life cycle is such an exciting one. We're about to, roll out the franchise carpet at Bodyfit, which is it's been greatly anticipated by many for some time, and it's very exciting, and the natural progression of all the hard work we've put into foundations over the years. So I see that to be a particularly interesting space by way of saturation, from a franchisee's perspective in terms of the opportunities that are available to them. And their expectations on ROI. So I hope that we can stand very proudly in that space and, set some franchisees up for some very successful, financial futures.
Well, we're going to have to do a pod in, 2 years time to see and get a recap of how well the franchise has grown.
I think so. I might sell you one between now and then, Paul.
Yeah, well, there you go. We'll have a conversation. and then just how do people connect with you? What events will you be attending next?
Sure, yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn, obviously, Nat Grosvenor. The easiest email to reach me on is just nat@bodyfit, so nat@bodyfit.com.au. And I will be going to the Beyond Active event in Singapore coming up in June, the Asia Pacific event. It's always a favourite. So yeah, I'd love and welcome the opportunity to chat with anyone that wants to reach out.
And I heavily recommend it. I've always really, really appreciated your insights, and it's always lovely to always have a drink with you. Actually, to be honest, we always end up in the bar. So thank you for that, and thank you for joining the podcast and sharing your insights. We really appreciate everything you do, and you're really leading a great business there. So very impressive.
Such a privilege to join you, Paul. Thanks so much for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye for now.